another edition of Blackwater Insights. Today I'm joined by Henry Jim, who is one of the Bloomberg analysts on the ETF intelligence team. And this edition we'll be talking about ETF flows for the month of October, as well as some fund launches that have happened in 2022 here in Europe. Henry, it's great to see you. So I know you've been focusing, you just sent out a report on ETF flows here in Europe, and I looked at the US just as a comparison. And year to date through October 26th, the US listed ETFs have seen 489 billion of inflows year to date, which is pretty impressive. And the article that I actually looked at was a Financial Times article, and it also mentioned that mutual funds in the US have had consecutive outflows, which is not really surprising. But what are you seeing? Like, obviously, we're both here based in Europe. What are you seeing in the European ETF space in terms of flows for the month of October?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Andrea. Always a pleasure. In terms of flows, it's a much smaller market here, as you know. We have 1.36 trillion in assets, so much smaller than the US. So the flows are pretty volatile in my opinion. In September, we had outflows of over 6 billion euros, and this month we had inflows of 6 billion. So it was a 12 billion switcheroo. And it's not any particular asset class or product. It's just it's across fixed income and equity were the biggest ones, to be honest. So we're seeing a lot of volatility in flows, asset class agnostic, but still, I think it's at least following the general same direction as the flows in the US.
Yeah, interesting. Obviously this year has been very volatile in terms of the markets and everything. So I don't think anyone was really surprised by the numbers or the outflows that we saw in September. But you said fixed income and equities, it was just kind of across the board. I know you also had put together a list of the rankings of the ETF and Vanguard and State Street. Was there anything?
Thanks for that question. Yeah, the top 10 are always the top 10. I'm thinking of maybe excluding the top issuer for the analysis purposes only next month. iShares is more than 40% of the market. So it really doesn't leave much room for movement on the issuers who take up the rest of the market. However, in terms of launches, we have seen 36 new ETFs across 5 stock exchanges and 12 issuers this month, which is not bad. If we keep on this pace, as I noted in my note, we're going to hit over 400 listings in Europe, which will be a first in Europe. A quick note about flows as well. In October, even with this massive switch in flows from negative to positive, we're still only looking at just under 60 billion in flows year to date. And I think it's going to be pretty difficult to break the 100 billion mark as we've done in the past 2 years. So to sum it up, launches are still progressing. Assets are sloshing all around. People are finding there's nowhere to really hide. They're trying. But in the end, ETFs are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're just allowing investors to express whatever investment views they have.
In terms of launches, we had a triple launch of metaverse ETFs in September, and that's adding to I believe there's like 6 issuers now who have metaverse ETFs, and I believe Han came out with the first one, and the second was Roundhill, and we know Roundhill obviously has their product in the US that's very successful. I believe that's close to 400 million, and they jumped upon and launched over here with their ticker, which is METV. And they are, I believe I'm not sure what they are in terms of assets. I don't know if you know, Henry, but I think it's around maybe, I think you said 25 million, but we could look that up. But it's definitely interesting to see how many firms, so September we had Franklin Templeton, Fidelity International, and Elgin. All 3 of those firms launched, I believe, within like a week or 2 of each other, metaverse ETFs. I do know that the metaverse is, projected. I've seen some data that it's projected to grow to a $680 billion industry by 2030. So I know you cover a lot of ETF launches and closures and stuff like that. And what is your thoughts on, just the fact that, like, when you get into this competitive space, there's 6 or 7 providers that now have metaverse ETFs. Like, is that are we at the saturation point? Do you have any thoughts on if there's like a cutoff, all right, we're good with 6, we don't need to have any more, or it's a hard space to enter into?
I think saturation points really depends on the amount of assets that are going to be going into the into this particular thematic strategy. I think a Roundhill did the logical thing as an issuer. Their fund in the US is, like you said, almost 400 million, whereas the other 6 providers in the US, I think together, let me check real quick, they're just under 25 million. So they did the right thing by coming to Europe. However, they only have 2 million euros in their fund here. And although that's small, the whole metaverse assets are about 23 million euros. So they're 10%. So I guess not too bad.
Right.
But in terms of are there too many? I think it really depends on how this is growing. From an issuer perspective, I think what's happening here is each issuer is staking their ground in metaverse. They don't want to miss the boat. As you know, sometimes having the first mover advantage could mean a lot, like in the case of Roundhill in the US. And what people are doing now is jumping people. I mean, issuers are jumping a little the gun and making sure that they have a flag in the ground in case metaverse takes off. Okay. So to answer your question, I don't think there's too many because the main guys are there. It would be too many if you start seeing maybe another 6 mid-size providers start launching metaverse ETFs, because the figures just don't show that there's much demand there right now. But Meta is putting a lot of money into it, so I think the story isn't going to play out till maybe end of next year. We'll see. My guess here is that with these type of products, they will resonate with retail investors, and I think we know Germany has about a 30% share of retail investors across the investor type in the landscape there in Germany. And I think as it hopefully grows in other markets, the retail acceptance of ETFs, that I think thematic ETFs will be a popular space because it's something that definitely resonates with retail investors in the US. And I think hopefully that eventually will jump the pond and come over here as well. But Henry, thank you so much for your feedback and your insights. And it's always great to get your reports. And for those of you who are watching, if you'd like to watch other videos like this, you can go to blackwatersearch.com. Thank you for watching.